So you want to learn how to write a grant. Fabulous. I've broken down everything I've learned into 7 steps. We're going to cover the first 2 here, and then there's 2 more videos that are going to explain this process. It'd be a lot to sit through in one sitting. Okay, so step 1, read your funding guidelines and follow them like the North Star. What do I mean by that? Every grant application, well, most, have guidelines specifying how they want you to respond to a proposal, how they want you to answer a specific question, maybe the formatting, whatever. Everything that they want tends to be in those funding guidelines. If you're doing a federal grant application, it's typically called a NOFA, a Notice of Funding Announcement, and the instructions will be in there. If it's a private foundation grant, a lot of times you can't really see exactly what they want until you've logged into their back-end portal. And so what I'll do in that situation is log in, write down all the questions in a separate Word document that they're looking for, and then operate separately where you can write and edit and not be in their portal. But anyway, you need to find those funding guidelines. I am a millennial, so I don't try to print much, but I do print funding guidelines because there's things you just can't see when you're reading it on a computer, and it's really nice to have it right alongside you when you're in the process of writing a grant application. So the first thing you need to do is print the guidelines, read them really carefully, and then walk away from it. Go have a break, go do something else, and then come back to it, and now you can kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I like to highlight key terms I'm hearing them use a lot, so I can be sure to incorporate that into the text. This is where I want to find kind of the bizarre nuances of a grant program. Like, they want all of the attachments titled in this very specific way, and okay, good, I've got that picked up, so I won't make that mistake, right? So read the funding guidelines, keep them close. You're going to use them from beginning to end. Step 2, prepare your narrative skeleton or your narrative template. What do I mean by that? What I mean is blank Word documents are intimidating. So how do we mitigate that? What we do is basically take what you found in those funding guidelines, what's the question that they want answered in the narrative, and then I also layer in, well, what's the scoring criteria? So I can be sure to answer the question in the way that gives me the most points. So how I do this is I'll have the funding guideline right here. I'll have a Word document on my computer, and I'll start typing in, okay, let's say the project scope of work. Please describe how you're going to deliver on this project. What barriers do you anticipate overcoming? How are you going to be mitigating risk, right? So they ask these 3 questions. I'm going to type that into my document and start bullet pointing ideas on how I want to respond to that. I'm not starting to write it. I'm just putting in the entire skeleton. It's like an outline of the grant application so that I have the bones in place for my application, and then it becomes a lot easier to start filling in that content versus working from the top and working your way down word by word, which is intimidating and generally a waste of time because the questions at the top you'll spend the most time on, and they tend to be worth the least amount of points, just based on my experience. And so I suggest definitely developing a narrative template or a narrative skeleton. And I do describe how to do this process a whole lot more in our free mini class on narrative writing, which is linked below, so you can actually watch a video on how I do this if you want to get into it more. But those are the first 2 steps. Once we have that in place, we get to jump to the next step, which I'll share in the next video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to just drop those in the comment box below, and we'll get back to you with either future video content or I'll respond to you directly. That's it.